An apple a day keeps the doctor away. Hi everyone, welcome to Sweet Bailey Acres. I'm so happy to have you joining me today. If you're new to our channel, I hope you enjoy the video and want to come back for more. If you're a subscriber or returning, thank you for subscribing and thank you for returning. Also, I want to know where everyone is from. So if you could, just leave in the comments below where you're from. I would love to know. Today, we're going to go ahead and get started making some applesauce. And you all know me. I do my prep work early. I do it the day before, so that way on the day that I cook it, I don't have to do the prep work and cook at the same time. And it saves me time and allows me to do more throughout the day. So yesterday, I did a lot of peeling of apples, and I put them in citric acid water and put them in the refrigerator overnight. I am going to go ahead and peel some more potatoes. Oh my goodness. Some more apples with you today, and that way we can make some yummy applesauce. So I got this new tool. It is a pillar and decor, and it's great because I don't have to put it on the end of my counter. I can just, it suction tops to the counter, and so you just flip the switch and it's suctioned really tight. It does a really good job. So the first thing we want to do in making our applesauce is go through and peel and core our apples. Look at that. All these slices. Okay, so very easy, because when you're making applesauce, you want to make sure that your chunks or your slices are pretty thin or small, and it cooks a little bit quicker because then they can get softer quicker. So I'm just going to set these aside. And I also want to tell you guys, if you want, save your scraps of your apple as well as your core, and you can make apple cider vinegar out of them. And I do plan on doing a video on that. It won't be part of the video today, but I do plan on doing a video on that. And one of the things that's great about making apple cider vinegar is you can peel your apples and put them in a baggie in the freezer until you have enough of the apple peelings and cores to make your apple cider vinegar. And then once you have enough, you can go ahead and do the processing of the apple cider vinegar. So that's what I'm going to do with all of my peelings and cores today until I have time to go ahead and make that apple cider vinegar. Okay, so for the ones I'm cutting today, I'm going to go ahead and I filled up a jar partially with water. And I'm going to go ahead and add a tablespoon of the citric acid. And I'm going to put my apples inside of here. Until we're ready to cook them. I chose Fuji apples, and the reason why I did that is because they're a really sweet apple, and I won't need to add any sugar to make them sweeter, and they just have their own natural sweetness, which is what I prefer. If you want your applesauce to be more tart, you can use the red apples and then add a couple of the more tart apples, like a Granny Smith apple, if you want to make it more tart. Or if you just want to make green apple applesauce, that would be really tart. But you can definitely do it. Other things that you can add in is you can add in some spices like cinnamon or nutmeg, or you could add some cinnamon candies. Try some different flavors. You could add vanilla. You could also maybe even add some other fruits in. Depending on whether or not you're wanting to can it or not. If your apples just have a little spot on them, a little bad spot, they're still okay to use. I just cut that bad spot off and get rid of that part. I do not put that part in my scraps to go for my apple cider vinegar. I just pitch that. And then I just go through and I usually will just peel the rest of the apple by hand. And then I'll chop it up and put the scraps of the apple, the little pieces of the apple, into the pot for the applesauce. I got the apples all peeled, and well, first of all, you want to make sure you wash them. I got them all washed, peeled, the cores taken out, and I had them sitting in the citric acid water. I went ahead and drained that, as well as rinsed off the apples before putting them into my big pot here. I actually ended up using one of my canning pots because I have a lot of apples. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cook them on the stove, and what we're going to do is we're going to add about a half a cup, 3/4 cup of water, and then you want to add water as needed just to make sure it's not sticking in the bottom. But you shouldn't need a whole lot of water, and it should only take about 20 minutes to cook. So depending on how many apples you have, mine may take longer, but and then we will can them up. But I'll show you how well they do with cooking down, and I'll let you know how much time it took to cook all these apples. You want to cook them down until they're kind of really soft to where you can put them and either mush them up with a blender or a food processor or an immersion blender. Or if you like yours to be chunky, then what you can do is just kind of chunk them up as well and keep them chunky. So, but I plan on blending mine. You want to stay with your apples also because you don't want them sticking in the bottom, and you want to pay attention to it. Now, you can cook these in a crock pot if you want to overnight, if you don't want to stay with it. But I figure they don't take that long to soften up and mushen up for the applesauce. And so I just go ahead and I cook it on the stove. So, but you want to get these nice and hot. And you can hear, I mean, obviously they still crunch because they're fresh. But what's going to happen is they're going to get really, really soft and kind of mushy. And then that way they're able to blend up easily. According to the National Center for Home Preserving, you want to can these hot. So you don't want to let the mixture of your applesauce cool down before canning. And you can either can these in a water bath canner or a pressure canner. I'm going to do the water bath canning. Okay, so I'm going to put a lid on these and let them sit and simmer for a while. These apples are smelling delicious. You can smell all the juice from the apples. They're starting to get soft and more wet looking. Okay, let's bring you in a little closer. I wish you could smell it. I don't know if you can see, but you can see all the juice that's gathered in the bottom. There's a lot gathered down there. And they're just going to continue to cook down. Okay, everyone. Oh, these apples smell so good. Okay, so here it is. They're nice and soft. You can see it's reduced down a lot. So they produce a lot of juice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to pull the apples out with my spoon that has slits in it to release the juice. I'm going to see how much juice I have afterwards because I did cook these with the lid on. That way they would steam and soften up quicker. The leftover juice I can add back in a little bit as I feel like it needs it. And if I don't feel like it needs it, more juice, then what I can do is I can take that juice and I can use it towards something else. Like I can make just apple juice for my kiddo. I can use it in breads or other ingredients. You can use it in broths to flavor other recipes. And so there's a lot I can do with it. But right now I'm going to go ahead and get these apples out of this pan. So there was about 4 cups of juice just in the bottom, and that's not including the juice that came with the apples as I was scooping them out. So there will be plenty of juice for the applesauce. And if not, I can always add it back in more. I would rather add some back in than have too much and have watery applesauce. So here's what I got of apples. I'm gonna go ahead and dump those back into my pot. And now I'm just going to blend it up. So if you don't know what immersion blender is, this is an immersion blender, and we're just gonna go up and down with it and stick it in there and blend everything up. You can make your applesauce as chunky or as pureed as you want. So that's the benefit of also using the immersion blender. Okay, this is a nice consistency. Time to get this into some nice pint-sized jars. I'm really glad I went ahead and separated out the liquid because these apples are so juicy that it is like the perfect consistency now for applesauce. I will not need to add back in any liquids. So, yay, extra liquids for something else. Now would be a good time to add those spices or sugar or anything that you want to season this up with, if you want to. Or you can just have it with the natural apples because these are really sweet apples and you probably don't even need any sugar. I know we don't. This is also when I recommend it, because I don't recommend it while it's cooking and while you're waiting for the apples to get softened. And the reason being is for the exact reason of me moving that juices out. If you have too many juices, then you're just gonna have to cook all that off or drain it out, and then if you drain it out, you've lost a lot of your spices. So if I add any spices, this is the time when I would recommend doing it. When canning, it's best that you start with hot jars if you're doing a hot liquid. So you want everything to be hot. Hot jars, hot rims, hot lids, hot substance of whatever you're gonna put in your jars. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead, and I used a mixture of regular mouth jars as well as large mouth jars that I put into my pot. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna fill these up, and we are going to leave 1/2 inch of headspace on our jars. We're going to process them in the water bath canner for 15 minutes. Once you've reached that hard boil, you can start your time. And you want to make sure that your water inside the water bath is a good 1 to 2 inches above the top jar. So since I'm using the regular mouth and wide mouth jars, my regular mouth jars are a little bit taller than my wide mouth, so I want to make sure that water goes 1 to 2 inches above the regular mouth jars. If you're new to canning, I recommend that you go back and look at our canning series, which begins with Canning 101, Canning 102, 103, 104, 105. It's a really good series that kind of breaks down step by step how to use the water bath canner, what the different parts of canning are, also how to use the pressure canner. So I would recommend that you go back and look at that for more detailed instructions. Making sure you get all that stickiness off the rim is extremely important for a good seal. So you want to make sure you get as much of it off as you can. And I'm just using white vinegar. You can also use just a rag with warm water or hot water. When you're tightening down your rings, you want to make sure that you do it finger tight. And what I mean by finger tight is you want to do it until you feel a little bit of resistance against your fingers. It's not cranking it down as tight as you possibly can, because what's going to happen is with most of your canning, if you tighten it down tight, you're going to have siphoning. And so you want to make sure you just do it until you feel a little bit of resistance against your fingers and then stop. You don't want siphoning, because if you have siphoning, that can cause you to not get a good seal on your jars, and then you end up having spoiled food. So making sure that you do it exactly right with the finger tight, just slightly resistance, is extremely important for siphoning. If you don't want to can your applesauce, you can always freeze it in containers or in baggies and then thaw out later for eating as well. Okay everyone, I'm taking the last jar out of the canner now. Looks like we got 12 pints of applesauce plus a little bit of extra on top of that because I put some in a bowl for my daughter when she got home from school today. So 12 pints plus a little extra. And then of course we got the juice that I also took off that will be great for putting a little bit of water in it and kind of diluting it a little bit and having apple juice in the morning for breakfast. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. If you did, please hit the subscribe button as well as the like button and share our videos. And we're so glad that you stopped by. From Sweet Bailey Acres, have a blessed day.